Wow, look at everybody popping in. So good to see you all. Yay!
Yay.
Faces I know, faces I don't know, faces that are looking at me and going, I don't know, I wanted. Hey, there's Bob Haley. Do you remember me, Bob? I remember you.
I do. Cheryl, hi, I need to call you back.
Okay. Yeah. Bye, Cheryl.
We won't be back for another half hour.
Okay.
All right.
I will check with her later. Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, it's good to see you all come on today. We're so grateful to you for signing up for today's webinar. It's the way of 2020. And, you know, what's so interesting is how many of us have mastered Zoom just in the last 3 to 4 months. Isn't it interesting? And so we're just grateful that y'all are here today. Let me introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Caro, and really in life, I'm just a wife, a mom, and a lifelong children's and youth pastor. But in this capacity, I am a senior consultant with Ministry Architects. And so we're just grateful to have you come and sign on today. We had a lot of folks that I think must be really curious about learning more and kind of kicking around this thing about how to grow your online congregation, because like the title of today's webinar, Online Engagement, how do you take 1,000 ideas that are coming our way and move them down into just one clear plan? And so I'm going to introduce our genius for today, my friend Jonathan. I'm going to introduce him just in a minute, but we just want to let you know that we would love to have you ask questions in the comments feature. If you've got ideas, this would be great for you to share ideas with each other as we go through this time. And so don't be afraid to share ideas. Don't be afraid to ask a few questions. Don't be afraid to answer somebody else's questions. And so anyway, make use of that. Before I introduce Jonathan, I also want to share some exciting news. We have a Facebook Live scheduled for next week, and I'm telling you, I'm suffering from this. The title is called Quarantine Fatigue. And just leading remote church in this time of 2020, quarantine fatigue and how to push through it, and all ideas and ways to just recognizing the realities of some of this and how to lead through all of that. I'm excited who's going to be on that live. All 4 of these people are just people that are brilliant at what they do. It'll be led with pastors Rob Dyer, who you might have seen on the Facebook Lives before, Pastor Aquila Lagande, David Gadini. I only call him David, so I've never had to say his last name before, Gadini, and then Lydia Choi. And so the 4 of them, Rob, Aquila, David, and Lydia, will be leading you all through this. And so it's going to be kind of exciting. But let me turn now to introducing my friend, Jonathan. Jonathan and I have worked together on a couple of different churches where we were consulting together. And Jonathan, first of all, he'll introduce and tell you his bio a little bit, but he is just the most wonderful person to work at a church with. One time we were working at a church in Iowa, and he was afraid that the rental car didn't have enough tire pressure. And so before I dropped him off at the airport and I had the car another day, he filled the tires up and checked all the pressure. That's just the kind of godly man he is. So Jonathan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan. Like Stephanie says, I'm a staff consultant with Ministry Architects, but I also am the executive director for a division called Virtual Ministry Assistants. and that division provides administrative services to churches and ministries. So we help them with their websites. We do social media. As you can imagine, at the beginning of this pandemic, some churches, believe it or not, didn't even have a website. So we had to help them do that, help them get online and do online services. So that's what I do for Ministry Architects. I run that. I am a father of 4, a husband of 1. So yeah, my kids range from 20 to 7. So it's a fun house. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I am the parent of 7. And let me say, even when they're grown and gone, you still don't finish parenting. And so, you have that to look forward to, even when they're grown-ups. And so, well, again, we welcome all of you that are popping in. And today we're going to just, Jonathan's going to be sharing with us about how you take all of these ideas that have been just rambling past on social media and in emails and in webinars and in virtuals. How do you take all of these different ideas and come out with one clear plan in this ministry world of in-person, virtual, and some hybrid in there? And so Jonathan's going to be leading us through that today. And so Jonathan, why don't you just take it away and get us started?
Will do. Like Stephanie said, it's been a road. A lot of churches find themselves in different places right now because of COVID, and engaging online is a big question. So here's what we're going to be talking about today. We're just going to talk about some stories, some systems, some steps, and then we're going to revisit some stories. That's really going to outline where we are today. So here's some stories that we've been hearing. We don't get this tech stuff, but we want to. The in-person opportunities with COVID restrictions is not what it used to be. We will not return to in-person gatherings until 2021. We conducted in-person worship and only 50% of our regular attendees returned. We have been offering online alternatives, but not sure how long we will need to. Definitely didn't count on it being this long. Our online numbers are consistently dropping. We don't know how to accurately measure how we are doing online. We aren't sure what numbers matter. We want to grow in our online engagement. We want to get the online basics right. We have decided online is here to stay. So that's kind of the stories we had, the context, and that's why we're really doing this, this webinar in order to get after those stories. So we're going to be revisiting those stories towards the end and actually providing responses to those. The first thing I want to talk about is online engagement. What is it? Just to give a definition for it. So we're all speaking the same language and know we're talking about the same thing. So online engagement is exactly this: faithfully serving our congregations and communities in an online context. The goal of our churches haven't changed. We're still all about the business of worship and community and mission and learning and providing resources and serving. And our online engagement just produces an avenue for us to be able to do that. So let's talk about some systems and see how all this stuff works together. So that's what we're going to talk about now, a couple of systems. Some of this stuff most of you may know, others may not. I know there's a wide audience, having worked in virtual ministry assistants, from small churches to large churches, to those that were really engaged, to those that weren't. So let's talk about some basic systems and see how all this stuff works together. Because here's the deal. Systems equal people plus technology plus processes. Widgets don't produce results, systems do. A lot of times people are asking me, what do I buy? And I ask them, what's the process? What's the system? What's the people? So even as we begin our conversations, please have a system mindset in the back, because even though I may be talking about widgets, I'm not just talking about widgets. I'm actually talking about systems, and I'll be engaging it from a systems perspective. So systems is what we're going to go after. We're always going to be looking at the people, technology, and process that works the system, not just widgets. Does that make sense? Everybody gives me a thumbs up. I see the heads nodding. Thank you. I'm going to give you a chance to take this in. I know this looks pretty busy, but this is what I call the digital ecosystem. Digital ecosystem. All these things overlap and they all work together to help us produce the results we want. So I'm going to walk through these step by step. I'm not going to spend as much time on the first two, but just want to set a foundation and understanding so we're all on the same page. Messaging. This is a very important part of your church. It is the basic means of direct communication. It allows you to segment your community so you don't have to talk to everyone all at one time. So your email system and your text messaging system, as you see, is a nucleus part as you engage digitally. You can have email systems such as MailChimp, Constant Contact, and you see some text messaging systems as well. The other thing I want to lift up is sometimes when we approach this messaging, we don't think about our children's ministry, our youth ministry, and those different segments of the church. So before we start venturing out into social media, website, online, those two basic things need to be in place, where you have the ability to engage with people outside of just the online experience, where you have the opportunity to initiate contact. And messaging is the place where that happens, where you can talk to parents when you need to talk to parents. You can talk to young adults when you need to talk to young adults. You can talk to students when you need to talk to students. So messaging is a key point and a key piece that needs to be a part of this entire ecosystem. The next part is your church management system. I like to call that the data of the digital ecosystem. It facilitates groups versus all messaging as well at times. And it is the thing that typically enables all the key processes in the church, from attendance, the membership, the discipleship, the groups, the giving. Most of that resides typically in a church management system. Some churches are still on spreadsheets. And being on spreadsheets is not a big deal. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as it facilitates the system and processes and supports what you're doing, then stick with your spreadsheets. Those are good to go if they're going to work for you. But there's some others that are well known that have a lot more functionality than a spreadsheet. And you can see that list there of Church Community Builder, Breeze, Planning Center, just to name a few. So before we start talking about websites, social media, online expressions, and going further, a church management system is another piece that is a foundational piece, just like messaging is, in order to make sure we have some foundational things in place as we begin our online engagement. Now we've made it to the money. We've made it to our website. Our website is what I like to call the gateway to the goodness. That's how you should think about your website. Your website is the gateway to the goodness.
I love that, Jonathan.
It needs to be visually appealing and easy to navigate. See, I put visually appealing there first, because when people go to your website, they want to be visually appealing, but then they don't want to get there and then get lost. It needs to be a website that is easily navigated. Visitor focused. When a visitor comes to your site, you want to be able to tell them what their next step is. You want to take this online visitor, and before COVID, we would want to take online visitors and help them become in-person visitors. Now that's a little different. Now we're taking online visitors that may now become online attendees of our worship services, or online person that signs up for our small groups. So now we are still visitor focused, and they need to know what next steps we want them to take. So our websites needs to be focused to our visitors, but at the same time, it needs to support the processes and calls to actions as well. When people go to your site, what do you want them to do? They need some functionality. Can they sign up there? Can they give there? As you see that the website is linked to everything else that's happening in your online engagement. You see it overlaps with your social media. There should be links for that there. Your online expression. Your website is the place where most people are going to visit either the first time or they're going to engage somewhere else in your online engagement, and then they're going to visit your website. So you want to make sure that your website is where it needs to be. And pertinent information is there. A lot of people go to a church's website at times, and I couldn't find what time the service starts, or I couldn't find an address, or I didn't know what time youth met.
Yes.
So those type of pertinent informations that a visitor would need in order to engage needs to be present. And there goes that system word. There it is, a system for management and updates. Just having a website without a system that keeps it current, that keeps the software updated, that there's a rhythm by which things are checked, that there aren't dead links, 404 errors when people click on certain things, that there's people on the staff page that don't work there anymore, and someone goes to contact them, but they don't work at the church anymore because we haven't updated the contact page on our website. There has to be a system to management. There needs to be a person or a team that manages the website, that they know what's going up for a banner and when is it coming down. There's a calendar of events that's present that lets people know what's going on in the church. As visitors go to your church and they find that your New Year's celebration is still up there, or you're still talking about what's happening during Valentine's Day, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. That's something we want to make sure that's checked regularly and really managed. And then you want to also be looking at your analytics and your performance for your websites. How many visitors are we getting to our site? What are those top pages? How are people getting to our site? Are they coming to our site from social media? Are they coming from Google? How are people finding us? Is our site, make sure it's SEO. So when people put in our church's name, it comes up in Google, it comes up in search engines. You see that mobile friendly. Most people are going to your website, not on their desktop computer. They're going to your website via their phone or their tablet. So your website needs to be mobile ready. There's a lot of churches that often don't take a look and assess their mobile readiness of their website. And some things look funky in mobile version, some things slide off the screen. So you want to make sure that the mobile version of your website is functional. We'll get the mobile apps later, but if you don't have a mobile app, then the mobile version of your website is going to be vitally important. And then here's the last one here, just for websites, updated for COVID. A lot of churches simply pasted a Zoom link on the front page of their church normal website and says that it was ready for COVID season. Your website needs to be adjusted for COVID. What do I mean by that? That your website needs to be adjusted for COVID. It means that there are some online things that you're doing that you want to highlight on your site as well. But there are some in-person things that may not still be happening, that you probably may still have on your website that needs to get updated. Static things that were there that were regularly occurring aren't happening anymore. The other thing is that your website was probably, most websites were built for that in-person experience. So navigating it, going to it, the information that's there was geared toward the in-person experience. What would it look like if your website was geared toward the online experience if you're not meeting in person? Would your website change? For a lot of people, it would. I've worked with a couple of churches that have revamped their website for this season because their target audience and their next steps was not coming into the building. It was something different. So their website is geared toward an online engagement that pushes people to the next step online and is geared towards online instead of in-person gathering because they haven't reached that phase of returning yet. So, and of course, people are going to go there just for regular COVID information to see how your church is responding, how your church is communicating, to find out next steps as it relates to COVID, and that information needs to be there. So the biggest takeaway is your website currently being managed, maintained by a system, and is it contextually for COVID-19 currently, or is it still the in-person driven website with a link to your to your streaming service or to a link to the YouTube for your worship service. You want to make that assessment on your website to make sure that it is in context.
Jonathan, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
You know, some of the folks that are on today's webinar or maybe listening to it later might have people on staff that can do their website for them, but probably the majority of churches need to have someone manage the website, create it for them. And you were so right. There are a lot of churches I'll go to and I find they still got mission trip pictures from 2 years ago out there, which really kind of sends a negative signal, you know. But so my question is, how much does it cost to build a typical church website? Because I think maybe money keeps people from keeping up with it. How would you answer that?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of different costs. The first one, if you're building a website from scratch, from the ground up, you don't have one, that's going to be the biggest cost. And I would say it ranges. For a church from 150 to 100 people to 150, that website will typically cost you between $1,500 and $2,000 to get it started. For larger ministries, mid-sized churches, I've seen them pay for websites close to $5,000. For churches that are much larger, than medium size, I've seen them pay a lot more. So that's going to be the biggest upfront cost, is going to be getting it built. Like you said, some people do have people on site that can do the management of the website. That's one of the things the virtual ministry assistant does as well. And we can do that for most churches for less than $200 a month, just managing the website, making sure it's up to date.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. Okay, great. Okay, what's next, sir?
Awesome.
Please, all right, ecosystems.
Yes. So, social media.
Hey, this is my favorite.
Social media. So, you see the two that I have listed up there at the top. Facebook and Instagram is where we recommend that most people start. When it comes to social media, it is, you see again a system, a designated social media manager or team. That is so important. It is a unique way for members to serve. You want this team to be able to like, share, comment, tag. They're going to be the ones that's looking at the analytics to see what's happening with your site. How is it doing? If they manage what I call the social media calendar. For most of our churches, we schedule 2 to 4 weeks out what their social media posts look like. 2 to 4 weeks out. We know what we're posting. We know what that looks like. There's a plan behind social media. There are spots for when things happen that, of course, you want to do there, but we have what we call anchor posts, and then we have recurring posts and things that actually set the stage and become the backbone of your social media. And that's actually planned 2 to 4 weeks out. And then this team also creates content. I mean, if you're just starting, the recommendation is 3 to 4 posts to start. But because of the algorithm and things on Facebook, it is now being recommended that you post 6 to 7 times a week. 3 to 4 is easy to start, but because of the algorithms of Facebook, it's recommended that you post 6 to 7 times a week. And there's one thing about churches is we have a lot of content. We have a lot of content. We have content. We have sermon clips. We can do infographics. There's resources that you can host on your website and then post those to social media. There's events, there's stories, there's much to celebrate. So 3 to 4 posts a week are easy and simple. If we have a team that's managing it, that's thinking about it, and actually doing the social media. Last and finally, I have to say this, you always have to think about photo releases and policies and those type of things, especially when dealing with youth and children and even adults. So you want to make sure you have the legal parameters covered as well when it comes to social media. And you see it's touching the website. Everything's touching that website. The part we've all been waiting for. About,
Question about social media, though, Jonathan.
okay, talk to me.
Question. If you were going to have like a social media team, you're just an average sized church. You know, the average sized church in America is only 76 people.
Yeah.
But let's say you're an average church, 100 to 150, and you want to put together a social media team. How many people is good for that? How many people would you need on that?
I would say you need at least 2 to 3 people. Just
Okay.
thinking about all the different skill sets. It may be in one person, but I would say 2 to 3, especially for having a backup and actually calling it a team. 2 to 3 people would be great to have in order to form that team, because they're going to be helping create content. They're going to be posting. They're going to be liking and sharing. And then there can be people who have particular duties, but the like, share, comment, post, that team can be as large as you want it to be. I say go for it, because the more people on that team that can do those type of things will increase your engagement as it relates to social media.
Can I ask you another question real quick then too? I had a talk with a church yesterday, and little church in sort of a remote area, and they were talking about all the views. Gosh, we only had been worshiping 40 people, but we get 250 views every week. So I have a feeling that's part of the analytics that she didn't really get about Facebook. How do you get to the analytics real quick?
Okay, so the analytics parts for Facebook. So there's in online experiences, we're going to talk about the views for worship and counting those. Facebook counts sometimes 1 second views. So you have to go behind that for Facebook Live. But the likes and shares, the most important thing I would say as far as Facebook and analytics is, I would say, who's engaging? How many people are engaging with your content? How many people are liking and sharing? Those are the things that matter. And not only how many, who. It is great when someone that usually doesn't engage with your content starts engaging with your content. So even as we begin to talk about numbers, this is a great question. A lot of churches are asking how many. I want to rephrase the question and ask who, because we actually want to know the name behind the number. That's what churches want to know. Churches want to know the name behind the number. So that's why having that team is important. Even engaging on social media can be the first step of someone engaging with your church and your ministry, giving you an opportunity to engage and start a relationship. We don't start relationship with numbers. We start relationship with people. So
What? Yeah, there you go.
We do.
So it's really having someone there that not so much the view, but that's seeing people and engaging with them, even in just the comments. And someone clicks on, you go, oh, hi, nice to see you there. Okay.
Yeah. And so your social media can also be a gateway to other things. I said a sermon clip. So you can put a sermon clip out there, but then have a link to the full sermon. So there's ways to use social media to also, you saw that ecosystem, the link to other things in a strategic and intentional manner.
Okay, great. All right, thanks for that, Jonathan. I'm learning a lot.
Sure. Here is the one we've all been waiting for. I did not call it online worship service on purpose, and you'll see why. I called it online experiences. There's a method to that madness. So now we're in this COVID season where we're doing online worship. It's either live or recorded. Either one of those work. I would just recommend, if you are recording, that there's a particular time you post and people are there to engage with whatever is recorded. Instead of having it sit out there by itself, that you, even if you record, but then you are engaging at the same time as though it is live, and you can have an opportunity to engage with people who are engaging with that recording. Again, you see a team. We won't get away from systems, people, processes, and technology. Streaming does require special licensing. I don't know if many people know it or not, but your CCLI license that you use in person is not the same license you need for streaming. There's only certain versions of the Bible that's been released to be used on streaming. Now, I'm not sure whether anyone's going to come after us, but I just have to be due diligent to let you know that there are some licensing requirements and nuances that comes with streaming your services. At some point, many people may have experienced that Facebook Live and other streaming things were cutting you off if you were playing music that was licensed. So that's something that the team would track. The team would make sure that your church is good to go in those type of areas. The different platforms, Facebook Live, Zoom, Church Online. I put these, the big three: sound, lighting, and adequate internet speed. Sound, lighting, and adequate internet speed. The reason I put it in that order is because your sound is probably the most important. Because even if your video is not that good, at least somebody can listen. But if listening becomes hard, most people will detach, will disconnect if the sound quality isn't there. You can always fix your lighting, you can always fix your video quality, but if the sound isn't there, it's going to be a big hindrance to most people. And here you see this other one, a catered experience to online audience. When we first started, a lot of churches was taking their, a lot of churches were online and they were doing their services online. A lot of them were in the building, but some weren't. And then some of us went back to the building. But when we went back to the building, all we did is we streamed what we were doing in the building. If we're gonna grow our digital engagement, we're gonna have to make a catered experience for the online viewer. For example, it is not engaging for online people to watch the offering plate pass doing offering for 10 minutes. We probably want to think about that. Sometimes the announcements part of our services is not suitable for a catered online experience. So we want to think about how we can use that. Even our countdown. So there's a countdown that even if you were using ProPresenter or Proclaim in your regular worship service, you had the countdown that went. It was just a blank screen and the numbers were going. For an online audience, that may work. I've seen churches even leverage that time just to use that time to welcome people and do those type of things while the countdown was going. Gave them call to actions, asked them to do certain things while the countdown was going. So they actually used that time and leveraged that time. The whole point is that our online experience cannot mimic exactly what we would do in person. We need to think about that strategically on what it would look like to actually engage online in a systematic way instead of just doing the same thing we did inside the church. The other thing is to think about whether or not we want to create a whole new separate experience that is totally different than what we experience online. So there's an opportunity there as well. And then you see engagement while and after viewing. There's two aspects of the online service. One happens while people are present, but you want to be able to engage with people after they're viewing. The only way to do that is the other parts of this ecosystem. The only way to do that is to have people that are engaging with people while they're engaging with your content. So we want to be able to form relationships. We want people to be able to be discipled. So we want to be able to engage with them, not only while they're watching, but we have to think about what's next. What's the next steps? And make sure we have those opportunities as well. So there's a clear pathway to move beyond just viewing. We need to begin thinking about what is the clear pathway? Someone has watched my online service. Now what? What's next? And is there a pathway for that? And that's why you see the second large bullet there that says moving beyond worship service. That because of our current context, we don't know when churches are going back fully, some not until January. And even when they do return, the numbers that may or may not, is that right now is the season to begin thinking, what can we do to move beyond just offering a worship service? How can we engage in online small groups, on classes? Have we considered, are there membership options for someone that will never dawn the doors of our church? If someone has decided that I am vulnerable and I don't plan on leaving my house anytime soon, what are my options to engage with your church? Is it just the online worship service? Or are there other opportunities for them to engage? What are the other options that your church is called to offer people in order to be engaged with your church? So there's a clear pathway. The other parts of the ecosystem help formulate and make sure that clear pathway is known and that people can step through that. And here's the one that we talked about briefly on the last slide. It's kind of mixed with social media, is counting the right stuff. So I just put two things: concurrent views and average watch time. Concurrent views is how many people, what were the most number of people viewing at one time? Now, I know that there are times when there's more than one person behind the screen. I get it. So some churches use a multiple. I would just say concurrent views is probably one of the most important numbers in average watch time. Are people logging on and only staying through a certain part of the service and then dropping off? What does the engagement look like? At what point are people dropping off? Are there certain aspects of our worship service that possibly aren't appealing to an online audience, so we're losing engagement there? And then I put this last bullet there that says, the stuff we always counted. That's the stuff that we need to keep counting. We still need to keep counting. What does our giving look like? What do the decisions people have made look like? How are people engaging in our church and serving? How many people are in our small groups in our classes? How many people are making decisions toward confirmation and baptism and accepting Christ? All those things that we would normally count when we had in-person services, all still the right stuff to count. I put that there because I hear a lot of people talking about online engagement, and they primarily talk about concurrent views and watch time, but churches still need to count the same stuff that we always counted. We need not lose sight of that, and our processes, our systems, and our ecosystem need to facilitate those things as well.
I have a thought and question, Jonathan.
Listening.
A thought and two questions. The first thought is kind of what I was hearing you say, or was running through my mind, is that we're, as church leaders, going to have to maybe change our language. We can't talk about going back to regular worship or our regular congregation, right?
Right, exactly.
Because online will also be part of our congregation, not the regular people and the irregular people.
Right.
So a couple of questions then. I've heard some people talk about how a church responds to, how do you respond to online numbers dropping?
Oh, that's a great question. Online numbers dropping is a great question. That was one of the things in our stories. I say you still count the right stuff. The church, there's always going to be, one of the things about the church that we know is that we are sheep. And sheep wander, sheep graze here, sheep graze there. So if your online things are dropping, one of the things is to look at some analytics and see why. But also know that there's more important numbers than how many people are viewing. If the other numbers in your church are being maintained and there's engagement in other areas, because it's like you said, people are getting virtual fatigue, they're getting Zoom fatigue, those things are happening. So if there's other ways people may be engaging other than just viewing. So I wouldn't, first of all, don't panic. I would say don't panic and look at other indicators of engagement, not just viewership on Sunday morning to the worship service. That number alone by itself doesn't give a clear picture of actually what's happening.
I've watched a lot of worship online now. I kind of like that Sunday morning where I can worship with 5 different churches, you know, and
Yeah.
people and friends all around the country. Some worship I see more engaging than others.
Yes.
Some are simply, and maybe that's the best they can do, but some are simply a camera pointed at the pastor, and that's sort of it. And those are the ones I tend to lose attention.
Yeah.
How do you keep it engaging?
Yeah, you have to cater to an online audience. You have to talk to your online audience. You have to let them know that they're there. And you have to talk to all ages of your online audience. One of the things that we need to talk to the kids, we need to talk to the youth, not just the adults. So we need to talk, we need to engage. That team can really help with that, that engagement part. Our presentation, especially when it comes to things like Zoom. There's a couple of things you can do. You can do polls in Zoom. You can do breakout rooms in Zoom if you're doing small groups versus just an online worship service. So Zoom offers different engagement things you can do to spice it up. I'm even thinking about children and youth. You know, starting back going to school, a lot of them are going to have to be back on their computers again. So a lot of people may be zoomed out. I get it, especially our teenagers. I would say create opportunities where they do things offline and then they bring those results online. Games are a fun thing to do. Where they have to go do a scavenger hunt in their house and then come back and show it on a camera or Zoom. So just be creative on how you can engage them. And just because the venue is online doesn't mean that everything that takes place has to happen in the online context. They can do things offline and then bring them online and be able to share them.
Great. Like they could be asked to, children, bring a picture of what your family looks like. And
Right.
then they work on that and they bring that to the children's sermon. Great. I see what you're saying. So
Yeah.
all kinds of things that just engage people, and it's recognizing that there is that audience. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Definitely.
Hey, keep going. I'm learning so much.
And last and finally, the mobile app. You see it there. It literally puts it all at your fingertips. Really, literally is what the mobile app does for you. I list a couple there that offer our mobile apps more features and much more versatility than simply a mobile version of your website. So the mobile app, you see how it overlaps and kind of put everything in a package in a mobile version. Most people these days aren't sitting behind screens and tablets when they're engaging with online content. They're on phones and they're on tablets. So a portable version of all the stuff and processes and things that we're doing in a mobile app is one of those nice steps that will increase online engagement. In the mobile app, you can send messages. The mobile app shows us on your website. Mobile app can have your streaming there. Of course, I have links to your social media. It is just a real versatile, portable platform that actually puts you in the pocket of everyone that's engaging with the church.
And so you could just have a mobile-friendly website. You mentioned that before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you don't have a church-designated mobile app, your website could have a mobile-friendly version.
Yes. A mobile-friendly version. So if you take a look at this digital ecosystem, I try to start from the basics of just messaging and church management, because all those other things have to be supported by systems and structures. So that's why I started from there. We worked our way out to our website and then moved to social media, our online experiences, not just worship service, and then the mobile app just makes it all portable. So this is that we talked about our stories, we talked about our systems. Now let's talk about some steps, a simple plan forward, a simple plan forward. And it's that simple. Form a non-anxious, competent team. Sometimes that may be in-house. Sometimes you may need some assistance from like a ministry architects, maybe. But form a non-anxious, competent team. Assess your current online engagement. What does your digital ecosystem look like? Those things that I walked through, how are those things system-wise doing? Do you have systems in place that are working? What is our congregation and community experiencing? What do they want and need? A lot of times we're not sure about that answer. We have to ask. I've seen a lot of churches do a lot of surveys, especially when it comes to COVID and returning. Those type of feedback mechanisms are needed to engage your online engagement as well. I talked to one pastor and I asked him, well, how's your church doing online? He told me, you have to ask my church. And that was wise, because I remember anytime you would ask me, I would either thought it was bad and everyone thought it was good, or I thought it was good and everyone else thought it was bad. So you actually want to hear from people. We don't want to guess here. We actually want to assess how we're doing. Take an inventory of our resources and remember your context and calling. Everybody's not called to do everything. Every church is not called to do everything. Every church doesn't have the resources to do everything. So make some decisions there inventory your resources. Once you've done that assessment, where you see where things are, improve what you're already doing first before you do anything new. And then some things may need to pause. I put the word there, pause, because that's more user-friendly. The real word there is stop. But if you tell people you're going to pause first, then you can stop it instead of just stopping it. Some things didn't work. Some things we experimented with out of the assessment. Some things we may need to stop in order to put those resources somewhere else. And dream, determine your online engagement plan. What opportunities do we want to offer online now and in the future? Even when we go back to in-person services, if someone wanted to engage strictly online, what are their options, opportunities? Where does it stop? Is it just the online service? Is it just a small group on Zoom? And then there's no other opportunities? But have we created that clear pathway of serving and all the other ways to be involved in the church? And determine clear milestones and hopeful outcomes. Implement the plan and then go back to number 2, always assessing to see how we're doing, what we need to improve on, and how to make things better online. So assess your current online engagement. We did create a diagnostic to kind of help churches do that. So we created a online engagement diagnostic to help churches get a quick picture of what it looks like for them to, the questions that they can answer on how they're engaging online. So it covers the areas of online engagement as it relates to your website, your social media, and other aspects. So we did create a diagnostic to help with that assessment process.
Jonathan, so it's a diagnostic, like a survey, and they answer that and then results come back to you?
Yeah, the results will come back to myself or another consultant. We'll look at those, we'll visit their website, we'll take a cursory view of their website, look at any online experiences we can find. And then we have a 15 to 30-minute phone call discussing the results, help them plan some next steps.
Great.
What's working here, what's not working, and be able to have a clear plan forward.
Oh, that's great. Great.
Yeah. So let's revisit these stories and see whether or not we were able to cover them in our time together. We don't get this tech stuff, but we want to. Hopefully I explained a little bit of the tech stuff. If you need some help in any of those areas, of course, we're here to help you in that. The in-person opportunities with COVID restrictions is not what it used to be. We will not return until 2021. Yeah, those next 3 kind of go together. What they represent to me is opportunity for online engagement. We're really kind of being thrust into that area, and we don't know how long we're going to be here. So that assessment part informing that team and improving on what we're already doing, because some aren't returning and only about 50%, if not more, aren't returning or can't return. So online engagement doesn't look like it's going anywhere. We've been offering as online interpreters, but not sure how long we will need to. And if that's the case, I remember that there was a prisoner of war, and the way he survived is that the guys that didn't survive were the ones that always thought they were going to be done tomorrow. The people that did survive were the ones that understood that possibly we're in this for the long haul. So my only advice there would be consider how long that you may be here for the long haul, and then take steps towards how to engage online instead of having the perspective this may be done tomorrow. Our online numbers are constantly dropping. We talked about that one a little bit. Viewership number is not the only number to look at. You want to look at that number in context and look at other areas of engagement and get a bigger picture. And then I just want to speak. I didn't speak to this earlier. Like I said, it's not about numbers, it's about people. So if numbers are dropping, who are they? That's a question we want to be able to ask. Who are they? There's a core group of a church. Typically, hearing from that core group is important, especially when you see numbers are dropping as it relates to online engagement, but also looking at other areas. As you can tell, I'm not a numbers person, I'm a who person. I think we always need to try to get behind the numbers when and if we can. We don't know how to accurately measure how we're doing. That comes with assessment, asking questions. I talked a little bit about the numbers when we went through what numbers are important, those concurrent views, those type of things. We want to grow. We want to know the basics. I hope I've covered that, and we're here to stay. So I'm hoping that from this talk, at least you have some next steps. Here's some other great tips, some things that we've offered on our website as it relates to COVID-19 and the space we're in. You'll see some virtual things listed there, but it's right there on our website as well. You can engage that way. But what I hope to accomplish is to be able to speak to those stories that you understand the digital ecosystem, not just online worship, and take a look at the digital ecosystem and assess each one of those areas, and then dream a little bit and assess where you are and what you need to grow in. Those basic things that are important as it relates to online engagement.
Jonathan, good job. So the next steps is to contact you and have that diagnostic done. Sounds like it, right?
Yes, that would be a great next step.
Oh, that sounds good. So folks can contact you. You can go to our Ministry Architect site or contact you. There is your email address is in the chat room here, but it's jonathan.barnes@ministryarchitects.com. Or you could contact me if you've got any questions about anything other than all this brilliance. I'm good with ideas for programming, and Jonathan's good at everything else. And so that would be a great next step, is to contact you for that diagnostic. And then as we wrap it up here, I just want to remind everyone that next Thursday, the 20th, same time at 1:00 Central Time, and then all the other times around that, is a Facebook Live that is entitled Quarantine Fatigue and How to Lead Through That. And that's going to be with Rob Dyer, Akila, David, and Lydia Choi. And so I think it's going to be something that's great to watch. And so we'll love to have you at that. And then on Thursday, the 3rd, we'll have another webinar that's going to be designed around just some real practical game plans for children's and youth ministry and getting you through the rest of this year. Maybe planning, I got this idea for a reverse trunk or treat. And so we're going to just be talking about some basic practical things, doing some safe distance, masked, or virtual ministry. So so anyway, we're going to have that in a few weeks, and you'll see more information about that. Jonathan, anything else before we wish everybody farewell?
No, nothing from me. I'm looking forward to that reverse trunk or treat.
Yeah, it really checks all the things. It's safe. It'll be easy to do. It'll involve youth. It'll be fun. And so anyway, that'll be coming up the first Thursday of September, same time. So everyone, if you need to access today's webinar, it'll be posted on our website at ministryarchitects.com. So you'll be able to get it there. I want to say a personal thank you, as I'm sure Jonathan does as well, for all of the comments and ideas you shared in the chat room. Thank you, everyone. There were some folks that just did just some great info, and you were all sharing different apps and programs you can use. And so we are so grateful for that. But go to ministryarchitects.com, and this will be posted. Plus, we'll email a link to all the slides, etc., and they'll be on the website soon. So in the meantime, blessings, everybody. Have a great rest of the week. Thank you, Jonathan, and everyone else. Thank you for your work in the kingdom. Take care.